even just like started because we're always laughing and stuff. The people that watch online, like unless they watch the full thing or listen to the full thing, they must think we're just like so serious all the time.
Yeah.
It's like there's never a smile in this temple.
Yeah, which is always no fun.
I love
the
that.
fun police are here all the time.
That's hilarious. Because we do that to each other too. We point out the flaws.
I love it. Like sometimes it's very funny.
I know, that's hilarious. Would you like me to tee up the topic, or do you have any other?
I just wanted to say that I would recommend coaches to get the Nick Nurse book.
Yeah, I want to recommend that range book too.
Yeah, well, I want you to. Okay, so what we were talking about earlier about the learning model. I want you to. I'm going to let you know when to say that.
Okay,
It's
sure.
going to be there at the end when we talk about multi-sports.
Okay, I'll make a note about that.
Because I think it's going to tie into what I'm going to be saying real well.
Okay. Do you want to talk about that book for a minute?
Yeah,
or no?
just, you know what? Coaches, if you get this, it's great because it'll open up your eyes. And I was just reading something last night or the night before. Last night was something different. Just the preparation, the perception, and the different things that you can do as a coach. I think it's really good, even though it's basketball and we're hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. And it's not like this is how I coach. This is what I do. He just talks about different scenarios and stuff. And I think the other day I was talking about how he filled the whiteboard up with just situational plays that he would use. Last night when I was reading, he was talking about, what was he talking about? I told you. Talking about, he said the invention of like the
3-point thing?
Yeah, so resistance, right? Resistance and change. We all do it in hockey. When they took out the red line when I played, it's like, what the hell is this? This is stupid. The fight rules, all these different things, instigators, and the icing rules, and a lot of times it turns out to be really good. So he was talking about the 3-point line, how it was. It wasn't there before. I forgot the year it came in, and then when they went to implement it, like the legendary coach Red Auerbach was like, "No way, this is stupid. Don't change the game." And then there was quite a few coaches and general managers in that ballpark or that mindset, and then they implemented it anyways. And like for the first several years of NBA basketball, the 3-point, there's no use for the 3-point line. It was like, why would you do it? And you get 1 or 2 a game. And then it started understanding it. So he did a study of shooting, and he said, well, it just makes sense to use the 3-point line. Number one is 3 points. And there's a higher percentage shots are made from the 3-point line than the 20-foot line because you got more traffic, just kind of like just spreading out the defense. He said, so he was doing the scenarios of, getting the ball posting up, getting the ball underneath, because that's pretty much a sure 2 points. Or taking a foul, getting the 2 free throws, taking a foul while sinking the ball gives you 3 points, and then 3 points from the 3-point line. And people were really resistant on that, but you could see as the years went on, the 3-point line is used, and people you have a very good percentage if you use it. So he had a rule with his team: no 20, 25 foot 20-foot shots, 12, 20-foot shots, because you're in traffic. None, zero. Either get it out, and they had design plays, or get it to the post. Kids resisted it, the players resisted it, and all that stuff. But look at the game now. I know you don't watch basketball, and I hardly do.
No, I can appreciate.
But it's amazing though, like how many. Like you take a Seth Curry, and that's all I know. There's a few Steph Curry. Yeah. What do I call him?
Seth.
Oh, same thing. No. Yeah, the Curry guy. Yeah. And it's just he nails it no matter where he is. Yeah, so like now if you get it out, you stretch things out. So anyways, it was neat. The reason I say that is because when you look at, and I want to do a little talk on this, and maybe in a week or two, is like different perceptions of what a coach is thinking and why they're thinking that, because it's really interesting where the genesis of his thinking comes from, right? Mm-hmm. And it's really neat how the game changes. And it was the same thing in hockey, right? Like the hockey used to be, let's just say in the 90s, Jacques Lemaire implemented the left wing lock, and it was just a defensive trap system. Mm-hmm. And it seemed boring and stuff, but like it served their purpose because they won a couple cups. Right. And then people had to counter and stuff. So you just see how the game evolves when you read something like this. But it's nice to see, like, if you put time and effort, obviously, into like some stats, some positional play, and like just really try to dissect how can we solve this problem, or how can we use this area that's never been used. For example, Gretzky behind the net.
Yeah, you talked about this before.
Yeah. But like if you would have told a player at any point before that to you know, spend your time with the puck behind the net or wait for pucks behind the net, people will be like, wait, you're nuts?
Right.
Puck's over there, but that's the open space and the net protected. And, and then just from that, a lot of teams and coaches, like obviously, if you want the safe areas, like when you're cycling pucks and stuff and changing sides, it's like using the back of the net is a great tactic.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Wayne.
no.
Thank you, Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's good for people to go seek out the information, man, because it's easy to sit with your opinions on why you think this and that, and if you don't ever read anything or listen to anyone else's thoughts on things, then you never know if you'll never figure out where your thinking is wrong, so that's why it's great when you come across views like that. I'm going to save mine until you tell me to bring it up later.
Okay, yeah, I want you to. I will remember too.
Yeah, I have a note of it, but I don't know when you're going to want me to do it, but if it works, then I'll work it in, because that book that I'm reading is pretty cool. It goes along the same thread as everything that we're normally talking about. So before we get into that, just basic podcast stuff. We got the membership thing online. Obviously, a couple more people have joined that too, which is cool. So thanks for that. Rating the podcast once again, that's really helpful. If you guys that are listening, a bunch of you are listening, and we don't have many reviews on the podcast. So if you guys don't mind taking a second to do that, that's actually helpful and doesn't cost you anything. So that's cool. And I'm working on a store. That I wanted to mention. So in a couple weeks, we'll have a store up, so you guys can buy some stuff that you see us wearing, shirts, etc. So we'll see how that goes. I figure you guys will like that, and then we'll get some discount stuff for people that are members and all that jazz. So that's the podcast stuff. So today I wanted to talk about. We were kind of flipping a coin on where to go with this topic, on which kind of thread we wanted to go, but. I don't remember. We kind of had a combination of people asking questions that kind of had a thread through it of more or less, whether you want to call it like managing your emotions or keeping perspective or whatever you want to call that. Along that theme, we've had several questions where this kind of plays into that. So we're gonna talk about a few different things today, kind of all with that in mind, from the parent-player perspective mostly. We might throw a little bit of coach perspective on some of that stuff, but I want to talk about that today because I think it's important, and it's something we've been kind of talking around a little bit the last few episodes, is just like being able to keep perspective, because people get caught up in what they're doing. You know what I mean? And it's like that with anything. It's not just your kids' hockey, but especially with your kids' hockey, because you feel protective and want them to do well and all that kind of stuff. And then for the players, you get caught up in the game in the heat of the moment with a lot of these things, and it's hard to zoom out, like you're mentioning with the Nick Nurse thing. Like it's hard to zoom out and see what the coach is thinking or see what the plan is, or be able to handle changes that are being made, and it can be frustrating. So I think it's a good thing to talk about. So the first one, we had one of the guys that listens, he actually writes in quite a bit to give us some topic suggestions, and he was asking us about refs. So some of his questions were about a little bit more the intricacies of reffing, which is like the actual job and how they're evaluated and that kind of stuff. And we don't really know enough about that part of it to talk about refs in that way. But some of the things he was mentioning, I think you wrote them down, but some of the things he was mentioning were kind of like hometown refs, bad calls,
verbal abuse.
Yeah, verbal abuse, dealing with refs in general.
Yeah.
So
being inconsistent.
Yeah, so he's kind of was asking like our general thoughts on that. So we're going to take more of that thread with the stuff that has to do with the actual in-game as opposed to the profession of being a ref. But we'll start on that one, and then we'll keep moving through. We got a few different ones here.
Yeah. When he wrote that, I was like, okay, this could be a good topic. But then I was like, I don't want to talk about reffing, because I don't feel like our audience cares about a ref, like to a certain degree. And personally, I don't want to talk about refs because like their job, and if they're shitty or if they're good, and whatever. That's not what I want to talk about. But what I thought was very important talking about this is that how people react with refs.
Yeah.
And so what I'm talking about is players, obviously, parents, obviously, coaches, obviously. Okay. So that's where we're going here. So I want to talk about first youth hockey. Let's put it in real perspective here, okay? Because like I will never say I'm a fan of refs. Like I don't watch refs. If you tell me, like I got Mitch Dunning that used to train with me, and work for us as an NHL ref now. My buddy Jim Sandlak, and I trained his son Carter a little bit. He played in the OHL, was drafted, signed with Carolina, I think. He's an NHL ref, so I know some refs. So I'm not saying I don't like refs, but my point of this is they get paid, all right, and they're judged by their NHL or OHL, whatever it is that they're getting, that they work for. They're accountable to someone.
Yeah, at the professional level.
Yeah, at the professional. At some point, you're accountable.
Yeah.
Okay, and at that point, when people yell and scream at the refs, I don't mind. Whatever, that's fine. You're getting paid, and it's part of the deal. They yell at players and stuff too. But when at youth hockey, like, let's put it in real perspective, guys. Like, this is coaches, players, and parents. Understand that referees, if you're not in a junior college or pro level, they're probably kids, or they're adult males that want to get I don't minimize it. Want to get exercise or make a couple bucks here and there.
Get involved in the community.
Involved in the community. They enjoy hockey. It's the only way they can do it. They're probably not going to be the best refs in the world. Okay, they're inexperienced, and just like your son, just like a junior or college player, and just like a pro player, they're going to make mistakes. And now, does anybody like it when they make mistakes? Of course not. But they're youth. They're young. They're going to make mistakes. They're inexperienced, and it is what it is. And the other thing is they're really, really, really hard to find, and they're really, really hard to keep.
Yep.
And it's becoming harder and harder to find refs. So when we're watching a youth game, I want everybody, including the players, because imagine if everyone yelled at you every time you did something wrong. And I'm like, I used to think, like, in youth hockey when I used to watch them, like, the one problem I had with reffing, I guess, I don't mind mistakes. I don't mind any of that stuff. But the one thing I didn't like, this is one thing I didn't like about the refs, is if you ask them a question, like, at least when Charlie was a young kid, ask them a question, and I was always very respectful because they're usually kids, and some of them were my customers. I'd say, "Hey, Eric, come here," and they'd give you the, "Hey, I don't talk to me," and they had that little power tripping stuff, and it was like they were shushing you.
Right.
That's the only part I didn't like about refs, because it was like a power tripping thing, and it used to irk me. So I'd call them over and say, "Listen, I'm not going to yell at you." I'd be very calm with them, and I say, I want you to understand that. Like, for one example, Charlie was a young guy, and we're playing a pretty important game. But anyways, let's say it was a 5-on-3 for us, and we got on a power play, and we scored a goal. So, and he was calling a penalty, and then the ref said, "Okay, everyone's out of the box now. It's 5-on-5." So I was like, what was his name? Fletch. Anyways, Fletch. I said, "Fletch," and he knew. Like, once he thought I was mad, though. I go, "Fletch." So he's going down the ice, and he goes, after the period, I said, "Just come here, man." So he waited to the end of the period, and he was really shy to come to me. I said, "Fletch, come here, man." Like, he's like 18 at the time. I go, "Dude, I'm not mad at you." I said, "I'm just pointing out, like, you understand that should still be a 5-on-3, right?" He goes, "I know, it was my mistake." I said, "No, I know. I'm not mad at you. But just, like, just when I want to talk to you, I'm not going to yell at you. I just want to ask something, or maybe I have something that'll open your eyes." He goes, "Okay, thanks, coach." And I said, "By the way, you got snot all over your nose." And he started laughing, right?
Yeah.
But it was like, the normal reaction on that is freaking out on the ref and yelling at him that it's a 5-on-3, and it's like, relax, man, relax. So that was like one experience, right?
Yeah, I think the human element part of it is, that's the thing that people forget when they're in the game. Like, the expectation is perfection, and if this is the problem with being a ref, is if you do a great job, nobody notices you, and if you make a mistake, everybody's all over you. So it's just one of those thankless jobs. So when people are losing their mind on the refs and stuff like that, one is like, okay, especially youth, like I said, where there's like not big money on the line or huge stakes. It's like, just calm down, first of all. But the human element of the game is what makes the game interesting too, though, right? So sometimes you'll get a good call, sometimes you'll get a bad call, sometimes you get the bounce, sometimes you don't. And that part of it, for me, is what makes the game interesting and fun. Like, if you have robot calls for every single thing, and you have to stop for 5 minutes to review every play to make sure that it's exactly precise every time, you're taking a bit of that human out of the game. And we've talked about this before with like umps in baseball and refs for different things. It's like, how many play reviews do we want to have here? How many? And if you're not going to do that, then there's going to be an element of human error in the game. And that is what makes it part of it interesting, right? Where there's a call or there's a controversial play or whatever. That's part that adds, that doesn't take away from the game, that adds to the game, right? Even if you're on the losing end of it sometimes, you'll be on the winning end of it another time. So I've found through hockey, I when I think back to like the games I played, I don't think like I overall got screwed by the refs most of the time. It's like, no, you get some, you win some, you lose some, it goes your way, it doesn't, and that's just part of the game. But that's the first thing with from the parenting perspective and the coaching perspective, especially because you're the adults. It's like you got to be able to just calm down, man. Like you have to just let it slide, because at the end of the day, nothing you say or yell or do is going to change the call that was made. And then your players or your kid or whatever, that's that gas on the fire thing too, right? Especially in youth, when it's like they're young and they see the coach is freaking out. Now they might start to freak out, or if a parent starts freaking out, the kid thinks it's okay to throw a tantrum or whatever. And it's just a bad thing to be passing around a team environment where it's like we snap on the refs whenever there's a problem. It's just not a good habit to get into, because for hockey purposes, but then just life purposes, like you don't want to be in the habit of just snapping every time something goes wrong, or if somebody cuts you off on the road, or if whatever, like snapping all the time is just not the answer for life in general. So especially when it's youth, right? And the point you made about normally it's kids that are reffing youth hockey, and it's like kids that are young and they're inexperienced.
Kids are my buddy Paul Liute. My friend Paul Liute, he's 60. I'll probably insult him here. He's 100. No, he's 60 some years old, 61, 60, 63. And he did house league hockey and did some youth stuff. He didn't want to do anything more. He just wanted to get out there, get involved. He's 62.
Yeah, right.
His brother was a NHL all-star goalie, by the way, Mike Liute. But this guy just loved to coach and give back.
Yeah, right. So it's like you're getting people that are either volunteering their time, getting paid little, they're kids that have a part-time job or whatever to make some money. It's like they're not all-star refs, man. So just calm down.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So I just said they're gonna make mistakes. They're going to, and it's fine. I mean, even if we do our 3-on-3, if I happen to be like a pretend ref for a little bit, I can't tell a trip. I can't tell. I can tell obvious stuff, but when it's close, I'm like, I personally wouldn't want to be the guy that has to make a split decision on an offside or a hook when it's important or whatever. I wouldn't even know how to do it. So, like, that's one thing is like, just take it easy on them. Take it easy on the refs. We need them, and just understand who they are and what they're there for. It's amazing to me to see an adult lose their mind on a ref. Absolutely amazing. And it's been unbelievable. You've seen the guys banging the glass and getting kicked out of rinks and calling them everything in the book, and this little kid or this whatever age, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
losing your mind. It's amazing. So what I would say to parents and coaches and players, right? The ref is like, again, mindset, mental toughness, all that stuff. Number one is control what you can control. Yeah. And the ref being really good or really bad is totally 100% out of your control. And if you understand that going in, it becomes a little bit easier. So as a player, if you know, that's something that Adam Bennett said for players, parents, and coaches is if from a mindset perspective to keep yourself sane, is going into a hockey game that there's most likely a chance that the ref might make a mistake or make a call that you're not in favor of. Most likely. So if you know that going in, you gotta accept it, like that's gonna happen, and then deal with it so you're not snapping.
Yeah.
Because like the problem is that if you put yourself so emotionally involved in your child's game, or like I'm talking from a parent's perspective, then that's where you freak out. But so expect the mistake, and then honestly, like Adam said, just laugh at it. Just like laugh at it, and it's like, what are you gonna do? And as a parent, come on, man. Like, well, it's not gonna change your world.
Yeah, because it's like then it starts to leak into the rest of your game or the rest of your day, or like the ref at your kid's game made a bad call, and that's gonna ruin the next 6 hours of your life. It's like, dude, it's okay. Like, it's gonna be okay, you know. And I think the other thing maybe to touch on is that he mentioned like the hometown ref thing, and I don't even know, like I don't really know what to think about that. I remember when I was a kid, whenever we went to London for some reason, it was like the refs seemed like they were just always trying to screw the other team, and I don't remember if it was actually that or if it was that everyone said that, so we thought as a kid, I thought, oh yeah, they're trying to screw us or whatever. And it's like you don't need to set yourself up at a disadvantage already because you're going in thinking the refs are going to screw you. You know, so I don't really know about the hometown ref thing. Like, what do you think of that?
This is this is where I think adults need to just these are adults that do that, or kids that are trying to find excuses.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. Several times in a hockey game, I'm just going to change gears a little bit. Several times in a hockey game, you'll hear someone say, "That kid won't pass to that guy."
Yeah.
Just watch. Just watch. He won't pass to that guy. He doesn't like him, or he's jealous, or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to say you probably didn't play a lot of hockey.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
I'm not being an asshole here. I'm going to say that though, because when you play the game of hockey, you might know that I might know, or I do know you're my right winger. Okay, I know that. All right, but things happen so fast, even for the young kids. It happens fast, and to process, here's a play, if you see it that fast, and to process, oh, it's Eric. I'm not passing to him because I don't like him.
Yeah.
Does not happen. You might see someone do a selfish play, a 2-on-1, or maybe they can move it, but they think they can get the breakaway. Or I'm talking youth hockey.
Yeah.
That you might see maybe a selfish play, but you're not seeing a play that I'm not passing him because I don't like him and he's a jerk and his dad's got a big nose or whatever. Right?
Yeah.
That's not what's going on in their head. They're just making plays, and I would say that's 99.9% correct.
Absolutely.
I haven't seen a kid that would say, I will not pass to this person. I haven't seen it. I know a lot of parents will say, or I know we get some comments probably that, oh, no, there's kids like that. I play with one. It's like, okay, but I doubt it. So when you talk about the hometown reffing, come on. Like when we use it, we even have parents that say it's just funny, when we're at home, our own refs are against us. It's like, well, no. I'm going to use that same example as these kids are under pressure. They're not trying to screw anybody. You think a 14-year-old boy or a 21-year-old kid going to college or whatever is sitting there and going, okay, I'm going to make sure London wins this game. What does he care? Right? Unless his brother's on it, but he wouldn't care that much. And do you think that he wants to make a call that he knows 40 people in the stands are going to be yelling and screaming at him and the coach? Guaranteed no. So I don't think there's hometown, what do you call it? Hometown homers.
Yeah, the homers.
Yeah. I don't think so.
And
if there is, there might be.
Yeah.
But I don't see it.
It's not enough for it to be a known, like, this is for sure.
The game is too fast, man.
I know.
There's too many things going on. You got so many variables. So I would say no to that.
Well, even the at the U16 level, or as they get older in AAA, when it starts to be guys that are between my age and your age or our age that are refs, it's the same principles still apply.
Of course,
and they've reffed way more games by that point too, right? So it's like they're not going to be worse.
Okay, so there's a ref, a couple refs in the OHL, just like when I played. That when I see them reffing, and I'm not saying because they're going to go against Guelph, that's not what I'm saying, but I know it's going to be probably very, very poorly officiated.
Mm-hmm.
Just as the way it's been.
Yeah.
And it's like it is what it is, but they're not cheating against a team, or they're not pushing for a team. I know that for a fact.
Have you seen that Way to Go Paul video? It went viral. It was a dad is at a hockey game and he's losing his shit. I don't remember for sure if it was on a ref or on a coach or what it was, but this guy's standing at the glass smacking it.
Oh, is that the one where it falls?
And it shatters.
Through? Yeah,
the glass shatters, and then you just hear a lady in the back. She's like, "Way to go, Paul," or whatever. And so it went viral.
Yeah, I saw it.
Because it's like, until that glass shatters, that guy doesn't realize how much of a goof he looks like. The moment that glass shatters, it was like, oh, now you see like how ridiculous your behavior is.
He walked in there. He walked out of there with a pretty confident stride, though.
I don't know. I don't remember that part.
I'm just saying, it's like he had to keep his pride intact.
Oh, I'm sure he did, but on some level, it's
100%.
I just shattered the glass at a youth hockey game, And that's kind of the take home I want the parents to think of. Like, when you're losing your shit, or when you're pacing back and forth. Like I was at a game a couple weeks ago, and one of the dads is like pacing back and forth, so intently watching. Every time the play goes, it's like both hands on the face, like just losing it. And it's like, just think about what you look like right now, man.
Crazy. Where does craziness come from, man? It's when you start, or mental weakness comes from. You lose your emotions when you focus on things that are out of your control. And you're watching your son play hockey, daughter play hockey, whatever it is. It's not in your control, man. The refs, it's like your life is not actually getting ruined, right?
And there's no thing that's gonna happen. This is the part that I feel like gets lost. There's not one thing that's gonna happen in one game, one day, or one decision you're gonna make that is going to be so consequential to your kid's development or whatever. Whether that's the coach they have this year, the skills they learn or don't learn, the ref in the game, they lost a tournament, they got screwed out of the playoffs, whatever. Like there is nothing that will be so consequential that it's going to ruin that, you know? And that's the thing you got to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could be in a championship game, and I understand where parents will go, but it's like you could be a championship game of a silver stick tournament. It's the biggest thing in your life, and a ref makes a bad call and it ruins the game for you. It's still not going to end your life.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It shouldn't. You should like, and of course you're going to say, use the cuss words. Look at how proper I am today.
Yeah.
Using cuss words, and you're going to be upset and stuff, but like, it's okay. Just a couple more things here. When I coached, I told my players, this is a rule that I had. 0. I don't want, not only for the rest, but for the other team, because they're young, right? 0. I don't want you to say boo to a ref ever unless I ask you to go to ask him a question. You do not talk to the ref. If he says hi to you, how are you doing? Yes, you can be polite, but you do not talk to them. Okay? And I said, as far as the other team goes, you do not talk. I don't want any chirping whatsoever. And I told them that when you chirp another team, you're just giving them power. That's all you're doing. Is if you start doing that, then it might fuel them. I'm not saying it will give them power, but it could fuel them to get back at you. So you just go play your game, do it quietly, do it well, play hard, right? I just don't know. I've never seen, even for coaches, I don't know when it would ever do you any good to be screaming and yelling at a ref. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I know that, once you get to OHL, college, and pro, there's some coaches that really, really give it to them, like all game and every day. But I'm not going to be I'm not going to be a believer that that's going to be helpful. I don't see how it would be. Like if I'm yelling at you all day for everything you do, I think in the back of your head at some point when you get a chance to knife me in the back, it's coming. So I just feel like it's almost like a good captain doesn't speak all the time. He knows when to do it and so that there's some effect for it, right? A motivational speech every 5 minutes gets old real fast. So it's the same with a coach just yapping. Coaches and players yapping at a ref all the time. It's like at some point you're getting it back. And you're not making any friends. So I just feel it's very effective and of course there's going to be times you're going to be upset. Your job's online. I get that. But I just feel like you're going to get a lot farther with honey.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's how it's like that in anything in life. If you go to work and your boss is barking at you all day, it's the same thing. You feel the same way. If you're a player and your coach is yapping at you all day, or you're the ref and the coach is yapping at you all day, at a certain point, you're just like, you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All day, for sure.
It's like, just get out of my grill, man. And so I don't want to help you. I don't want to. In fact, I'm going to do whatever I can to spite you now because you're pissing me off. And that's just a human thing that happens in those interactions. And people know that. And then all of a sudden they just forget in sports that it's like those human things don't exist anymore. So you're not helping your case when you do that stuff,
So again, coaches, I would just suggest don't speak. Keep it really quiet. And then another example for the coaches, and I would say this for the parents as well, and I think you kind of addressed this a little bit, is who's the leader of the team? The coach. Who's the leader of a family? Your parents. So if they see your parents or a coach at every little drop of the hat lose their shit, make a fool of themselves, or snap and lose their emotions, then they don't feel like why shouldn't I? Like why do I have to be in control and that you're not? So being an example for your players, being an example for your kids if you're a parent is important. And then when you understand, like I said, if you can keep your emotions in check and understand that that's not you playing and control what you can control. The refs aren't what you can control. That message can be always sent down to the kids. So when they slam their stick because they got a bad call or it was offside, it's a great opportunity for coaches to teach the simplest and one of the most effective things in life is to control what you can control. And you could use that 50 times in a game.
Yeah.
That was offside. Okay, boys. And I use the term when Adam always said when he was doing our podcast, he said, to laugh at it. And that's one tactic. What I used to say is get it back because it keeps you in a positive frame. So if you get a terrible offside call, you could yell at the ref, or the kids could yell at the ref or show emotion. But as a coach or as a leader, you can say, "Okay, boys, it's out of your control. Okay, out of your control. Let's just get it back," and it puts you a positive spin so they can go attack again instead of being in a negative frame.
Yeah, man.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. You will set the tone, whether you're a parent, a coach, whatever leader you are. You set the tone of the environment, and the environment shapes everybody's behavior. So if the team is bought into a certain style of behavior, that's going to be because the coach set that tone. If at your house there's a bunch of problems with your kids, you're the ones that are setting the tone. Like, you're the one setting the example for the most part. Obviously, there's certain circumstances that are exceptions. Like if a kid has a condition for something and he's not going to listen to the rules, then whatever. But in general, assuming everyone is functioning normally, then you set the tone. You're the one that's at the front of the room. If you're the teacher in the class, you set the tone. The class will respond to your voice based on your behavior. They'll get away with what they can get away with because that's what kids do. They try to find the lines. But if you're not leading by example, if you're not setting the tone of that environment, then the kids are going to be whatever you allow. So if you're somebody that's constantly losing their shit, even if you say to them, guys, don't lose your shit, or you need to keep your emotions in check, or whatever, and you say the words, but your actions don't follow that, then your words mean nothing. Your words don't mean anything. So if you find you don't have good control over your guys, or you at your house, your kids are out of the loop, or at school, if you're a teacher, your classroom is out of control, look at you first, because you're the one that can set that tone, right? And it's important. People don't understand that. And you have a lot of control over that. And that is the environment is going to dictate the development of the kids that are in it. That is what is going to happen. And it's not even just kids. It could be a company environment. It could be whatever the environment is. That's
100%.
And that's like I love what we have here, because we set that tone, and everybody that comes here consistently is the same. When it's time to dial in, we dial in. When we are having a time to goof around, guys goof around. When it's fun, it's fun. When it's serious, it's serious. And that's because the expectation is set from the top down, And so it's important to keep that in mind when you're in that role.
Yeah, like the parents and the coaches, like I read this a long time ago, is that you speak so loudly that I cannot hear what you're saying. It just simply means you yap a lot, but what you do is not matching your talk, right? So it's one thing to tell your kids to keep it in check, don't lose your shit, but if you're not doing that, then they're not going to follow. So just to reiterate on that, bad calls, things don't go your way. Jocko Willink says when things don't go well, then good because there's different opportunities. And what I was saying is when things don't go your way and bad calls, it's just simply get it back, or like Adam says, laugh at it and move forward, re-engage and refocus. And it's actually it's not just words. That's actually very, very critical, because it's very easy to dwell on it, because when you put yourself in that negative mindset, right, and you're thinking about the bad call, and now you go on and you're giving the ref the mean mug and all this stuff, and you're angry, you're playing a different mindset, it's a different player. So just learn how to let it go and get focused.
Yeah. So I'm going to attach that Jocko video. Good. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's the best.
I watch it very frequently. Yeah. It's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, and maybe on that thread, we can stick with the parenting thing a little bit. And I know we talked about it a little bit, about kind of like the behavior in the stands. And this is going to go back to the perspective thing, right? Is being able to keep perspective. The refs is one example of being able to keep perspective as a parent when you're watching. But I remember I played with a kid, and his mom in the stands was mental, like to the point where his dad wouldn't ever sit with his mom or be near his mom during the games, because she would lose it. Like there'd be fights. It was crazy. And right up until I played with him in university too, right? And she's a great lady too. Like she's a family friend, like awesome person, but just in the heat of the game, like she just gets going, you know? And I think it's important that when parents are watching, they're able to, especially at certain levels, it's like you got to be able to see the level for what it is, you know? So maybe we can stick on the kind of the parenting behavior in the stands and that kind of thing during the game if you want to throw some thoughts on that.
Yeah, like here's the thing, man. It's again, you're around other people. You don't know who these people are or who they're going to be. And
Yeah,
I've said this
seriously.
to my players too, right? Like, because like around here we have the two teams that compete, like the two AAA teams. It's Windsor and Sun County, and they hate each other.
Yeah.
When I coached in Detroit, I had a camp, and there was a lot of Bell Tire, Honey Baked, and CompuWare kids. Yeah. And I said, okay, we'll do this. This is it. And they were fuming with me because they hated each other. Bell Tire's with Bell Tire. And I think you might have been at that one, or I know they were younger than you. But anyways, and I told the kids when they go into junior, I said, "It's guys, I know you hate each other's guts, but I said I want you to watch my junior skate or my pro skate. What happens is this guy, you might be a teammate one day in 2 years. 3 years.
I say that all the time to our guys.
There's a chance that if you're good enough that you might be a teammate, and then you're gonna have to train with each other because." If you're gonna be only a few people at every age group that get to move on to another level, so whatever. So it's the same with the parents. People are around. You never know who it's going to be, and that parent might end up being on the same. If your kid's really good, they might be on the Team Canada together. You might be on, the Owen Sound Attack together. Whatever. That might be a thing. You get to know each other, and you want to be remembered as the guy that lost their shit, and that was an idiot because stay away from me, or you have to apologize for life.
Yeah.
Right. And then the other thing is that, again, they're kids, man. They're kids. Like in youth hockey, they're kids. So I remember obviously very clearly because it would happen to me. I was I tried to stay away from people. And I did that because I didn't want to hear everybody's analysis, play-by-play of the game. I remember one of the dads said if he would just go in front of the net and they would pass it to him, they'd score all the time. And I said, yeah, for sure. That's how hockey works. It's that simple, right? Mm-hmm. But so I didn't want to hear that stuff, but I didn't want to hear people losing their minds. So I'd go by myself. So one game, Charlie was playing, and the game before he took a knee, and he had to leave the game later in the game, but then he was good for the next game. So he was angry. He was like bitter. You know what Charlie is. Mm-hmm. So a kid was coming down. He was kind of hooking and stuff. So Charlie turned around and he pitchforked him. And I mean, he should have got life. No question about it. Like I said it to my wife. I said, "Oh, he's done." But the refs gave him a 5-minute for whatever reason. The guy beside me was standing about 10 feet beside me, started yelling how he's an asshole, what an asshole kid, and all this stuff. So I try to keep my calm. So I let him do it a couple of times, and then I said, "Hey, dude." So that's my kid. I said, "Just nah, no more." So he goes, "Yeah, but this," and he kept going. I said, "Dude, that's enough." So I think he was like kind of backed off a little bit. And I told him, I said, "That's the nicest kid you're ever going to meet." I said, "He's mean on the ice, but he's the nicest kid." I said, "Easy." So that was the end of that. But it's like, I don't like that guy.
Oh, yeah.
It's not because it was my kid. It's like, you sit there and call a kid an asshole. Or how about when the call goes, like it's a kid. You don't know anything about them. It's a kid. And why are you so involved in that? And now the next thing is it's their sport. It's their game. It's their emotions. You have no business freaking out and getting all emotional and yelling at people. It's their game. It's their emotions. It's out of your control again. Mm-hmm. So, the other thing is when you'll see a parent losing it when their team gets hit, let's say, or get a bad call. But if it goes the other way, they're cheering.
Yeah. So
makes no sense, man.
So let's. I'm gonna pull that apart a little bit. So that's I like that example because it's a dirty play. That's why I like this example, the one where Charlie spears the guy, right? Because this is like
I'm the first one, and I was there.
Right
on the second. I said, "Oh, there's life."
Right, but going to prison. But this is a good example because it's the extreme, right? Because anything less than this, like if we can rationalize the extreme example, then anything less than this is even more nonsense. So if you're a grown adult, so you're between the ages of 30 and 50, and you're watching or older, and you're watching a kid's game, and in the heat of a game, a kid spears somebody. Okay. Now, should the kid have done that? No, he shouldn't have. Was the kid's intention to try to hurt the kid? Maybe not.
Maybe. Let's say maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. After for the most part, kids that are on the ice, I remember as a player, nobody wants to see anybody actually be hurt for a long time, right? So even if in the moment it's like, I want to hurt this guy, if the kid actually ends up being hurt, nobody likes that. On either team, you might get the odd nutcase that likes that. But for the most part, the 99% again, we're not trying to make anyone hurt for a period of time. You might want to give them a stinger or something that is painful for a second, but if anyone's actually hurt, none of the players want that. So if I'm a dad watching and I see a kid pitchfork a guy, and my reaction to that is to cuss out a 14 or 15-year-old from the stands with a bunch of other grown adults near me, then we need to stop and do some analysis on our behavior as a grown-up, okay? If you were to be walking through Walmart and a kid knocked over a shelf and something exploded and spilt on you because they knocked it over, and you sat in Walmart screaming at a 15-year-old because he knocked something over in Walmart or made a mistake, what would happen? Because this is a similar situation to that, right? So as a grown-up, you're screaming at a minor because of his on-ice behavior that in the heat of the moment happens. Stuff like that happens, right? So not to mention the fact that you don't know if his dad is right next to you. You don't know if there's, like you made this point yesterday when we were talking about it, if there's a police officer standing 2 people over from you, you don't know what's going on around you. So you have to have some self-awareness because
you don't know if someone's sitting there with a camera and is going to put it on Facebook.
Exactly, right? This is how you get these viral videos, right? So, and I'm sure that most people that are there, most of the parents, they're reasonable, but they just get caught up. So if you can review your behavior, if you saw another parent doing what you're doing, is that actually a reasonable thing to be doing in the stands at a kids hockey game, right? We do the same thing at the OHL games or at the NHL games. You have like some drunk 40-year-old in the stands screaming at Dylan Larkin on the Detroit Red Wings because he's just so mad. And it's like, dude, like it's just not the way that you behave in functional society. So why is it okay for you to do it in this environment at a youth hockey game? It's not. So I'm hoping, and that's in the extreme when a kid pitchforks a guy, and we see people explode about things way less, potentially damaging than that, right? So it's something as parents, because we see it every single game I go to. You got 2 or 3.
And what you're actually explaining is essentially the reaction that the parents have is the exact same reaction that the kid just had. He's responding no differently. Kid was frustrated or lost it. My kid at that point lost it, or he just had enough and he just pitchforked him. And then that parent, his reaction was pitchfork him in a different way. And you're yelling at him for being an asshole, but it's actually now you're the asshole.
Right.
You're the asshole.
Because at least he can say I'm a kid.
I'm a kid. I'm playing the game.
I'm in the game.
And no, that pitchfork, I don't have a problem with the parents going, ref, ref, look what they missed. And like, come on, like losing at the ref a little bit because someone appeared to be in a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
From the nuts up.
Yeah.
But there's a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
Right. And like, did you see that call? Like that's reasonable. But to yell at a kid, come on, man.
Yeah, take it out on the kid.
Yeah, it's like they're just kids, and they're the ones that are playing.
Yeah, yeah. So that happens. It's so funny too. Like even that class that I trained in here, the one class is a grade 8, and they're a rowdy group. And you would not believe like the way the teachers talk about the kid. Like, and hey, I know. I'm all for like some kids are a pain in the ass, man. Like I totally understand, but at the end of the day, they're kids.
And
like
you chose this job.
You chose the job. But they're kids, and some of like the things that they say about them, or like, oh, like these kids they're such assholes, or like this kid is this word, or this kid is this. I'm not gonna go into the details of the words they say, but it's like, dude, they're kids. I understand like to a certain degree the annoyance. I can, but like you're saying, there's a reasonable degree. There's a reasonable degree because at the end of the day, you have to be able to keep the perspective that we're talking about kids right now.
That the last thing I'm going to say about the parents thing is like, I really do. Like we've talked about coaches that are maybe not necessarily the greatest coaches and all that kind of stuff before, but I really do want, again, parents and not so much the players because players, they're just kids, but give people a break, like as far as coaching goes. Give them a break. I mean, I think most people, and I'm not saying all. There's some coaches that go in there thinking that they're Bobby Big Wheel and they're going to
For
the
sure.
NHL. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, most guys are coaching and they're trying their best. And look at some decisions. Like, and I kind of looked at that when I was reading the Nick Nurse book about like his perspective on some of the things, and it's like, okay, that makes more sense why this guy made a decision. Um, and I look at, it's a hard job, man. You're not just coaching your kid. You know, I could watch the game. Someone could watch the game and they're focused on their one child and why he should be on the player. If he was there, because my wife and I have done it. Yeah, if Charlie was in, you know, if he had that opportunity, he'd probably do well too. It's like, yeah, but it's not about him. It's about 22 guys, and actually a little bit more. So sometimes a coach will make a decision. You know, I was reading the Nick Nurse book, how there's times where it might be an unpopular decision
Mm-hmm.
amongst a group, but it was to make one person have a little bit of success, and it could be building them up,
Yeah.
or it could be whatever, various reasons. So, and then the other thing is that, like, let's be honest, mom and dad and Uncle Jesse, what do you really know about the game? Like, and some people do, but if the power play is not working, what a lot of parents will say, well, we got to do something about that. So if you ask the question back, like, do what though? What would you like to do? And they say something. Well, something is not actually a tactic. Something is not, you know, we need to break out with 4 guys to get the puck up there. That's not, that something is nothing. So like, before you start accusing the coach of being an idiot and not knowing what he's doing and favoring kids or whatever, you might want to look at his perspective if you have the ability to do that. It might take some intelligence. And if you don't, maybe you should just zip it. Because the coaches really do, they're not bad people most of the time. Some of them, like, you put a crest on them with a jacket, they think that they run the United States of America. But, you know, you give them a little bit of power and stuff. But
Yeah.
most of them are good people just trying to help out, right? Or trying to do their best. And no, again, coaches are going to make mistakes. And I look at the OHL level, like, I mean, you still got parents like somewhat involved because they see their kids a little bit more in play. And, you know, people can freak out if things don't go their way, or we have a couple of bad games. It's like, they need to fix that. And it's like, well, the coach knows that. He gets paid very good money. The coach, the 3 coaches on the OHL bench, they know that they have to fix that. They know. So they don't need you, the guy that works at the factory or the guy that never played hockey, to explain that they need to fix that. They know. They do video and they're working really hard at it. So just give it a break.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I want to point out too, because this is a common, like, just for the yeah buts, because there's a lot of those. This doesn't, like, the stuff that we're talking about, it doesn't excuse anybody else's poor behavior. So like, you being able to give somebody a break doesn't excuse the coach for not being a good coach, or it doesn't excuse the coach for having bad behavior, or it doesn't excuse any of that. But it's just going to the point that you mentioned before of, like, you cannot control that, right? So when we say, or when you say you want to, like, give people a break, give the refs a break, give the coach a break. It's like, yes, but that doesn't mean we're saying all bad refs get a free pass, or all bad coaches just let them do their thing and never say anything. Like, that's obviously not what we're saying. The point of it is that you cannot control someone else's behavior, no matter how mad you get about it, no matter how many times you call the coach, no matter how many times you do this or do that. They're going to do what they're going to do. So maintain an even keel about what's happening, right? Because whether they're a good coach or bad coach, whether you give them a break or you don't, it literally doesn't matter, because they're going to do what they're going to do, no matter what you think you're going to say about it. You know, you want to pull your kid off the team and go somewhere else, that's fine. But guess what happens? You go somewhere else and you get the same issues in a different way, or a different set of issues. It's never a perfect situation, right? When it's a team, it's not a perfect situation ever, right? So I want to point that out, because I can already, when we're talking, I can hear the yeah buts from parents,
sure.
because there's always a yeah but.
Yeah, dude,
right?
dude, I'm a dad.
Yeah,
like I'm the hockey guy, but I'm a dad, and this is why I can relate so well to it, because there are times, and I have to be honest, right? Have to be honest, where last year, this year, whatever, I'm like, in my own head, or me and my wife, I go, Charlie had that opportunity. Like if you just give it to him, but that's just dad.
Yeah, it's just dad. Yeah.
I don't know the ins and outs of it or what the coach is
Yeah.
thinking, or maybe his time's coming. So what I had to tell myself early in the OHL, early, is and I was very truthful about it. Is we have a general manager that's been around, and the coach last year that's been around for 30 some years. Got professionals on the bench now that have been around for a long time. In fact, well, they are, some of them kind of, yeah, more experienced than me at coaching for sure, and played high levels. Like two of the coaches played in the NHL a little bit and Europe and all that stuff. So yeah, I think they know hockey. So what I had to say to myself, because every parent's crazy to a certain degree. Wayne Gretzky's dad was an absolute nut about hockey. So, it's not like I'm not excluding myself. And I had to just say, you have to trust the process. You have the best people that you could ever ask for your son and for the team. You have to trust the process. And you know what? Doing that took all the pressure off. I just get to enjoy it. And I don't blame the coach. He's a good coach. He's a great coach. The coaching staff is great. And it's like, you couldn't ask for any better. You just trust the process, and then you watch your kid flourish if he's dialed in, because at the end of the day,
it's not up to you, man.
It's not up to you. Your kid has to want it. And I've had to say that. It's like, like as a youth player, you try to give them little pieces here and there. And it's like, not anymore. Like, if you ask me for something, I'll give my opinion. But I go right to ask your coach, ask for video. I have no opinion anymore, because it's out of my hands. You either want to go and do video, do extra workouts, do whatever, or you don't.
Well, this is what I love about your perspective on it too, is because you're honest enough with yourself to, and I think this is what's helpful for people to listen to, is you're honest enough to share your dad part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's important, man.
I know, because we don't sit, we meaning you don't sit here acting like you don't have the mom and dad emotions, because you do, right? But the important thing is recognizing those emotions and then being able to still act rationally instead of acting on your parent emotions, because you have the protective instinct, man. You want your kids to be safe, you want them to be successful, you want them to get everything they could ever want and never be hurt and all that stuff. Like, those are the parent instincts, right?
The easy path.
So you want it to be easy, you want it to be, everything is just perfect. And that is the parent emotion. And so to sit and pretend like that doesn't happen would be wrong. So it's nice that the way that you explain it is, I recognize my dad emotions when I'm watching, and I know enough to just see those there and still act like the person I am in the hockey network, right? Where you can look at it more objectively, or as objectively as you can, because that is where the success comes in as being a sports parent or a hockey parent, right? Is you have to be able to separate your mom and dad emotion from your kid just developing, right? And if you treat it like when you're watching a game where your kid isn't involved, what do you think of the game then? And like, that's kind of where you should be at when you're watching. As soon as your kid is in, it's like, now all of a sudden everything's different. It's not different.
Yeah. So sometimes. So anyways, we want to talk about, you had one about punishing a team, coaches punishing a team.
Yeah. So this one came up. I think somebody wrote in something on this one, and then a couple of the guys that I train were talking about the like coaches punishing the team kind of topic. So basically what I was getting at was, this is just for me personally, I don't understand why, I don't want to say I don't understand, I get it, but I don't see the purpose of coaches like bag skating the team. So this is what happened. So just for some context, the U16 kids that I train, both the Windsor and the Sun County, both teams, they come in and train, and I always ask them like how the weekend was and whatever. And if they had a bad weekend or they lost a few games in a row, they all know a bag skate's coming, right? So they're like, yep, it's Tuesday or it's Monday night, we're getting bagged for sure. So I don't really understand what that accomplishes as the coach. I don't really see the point of giving your team, from the coach's perspective, a punishment for having a poor weekend or whatever, unless was like a total lack of effort, or they're continually making the same mistake in practice or outside of one of those two things, where it's like an effort thing, where it's like it just seems like nobody's interested today. Outside of that, I don't really understand why coaches seem to just like, okay, fine, we're gonna bag skate because we went 0-3 this weekend. So I don't know if you want to. Is that enough to start on?
Yeah,
there?
easy. Number one, most. Let me go more current coaches that have a well thought out plan or understand the game or whatever. Probably don't bag skate a lot. There's probably not a lot of it. And if there is and I'm not saying don't skate hard. There's practices that you can do that are absolute baggers, but they include hockey.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Just to be clear, that's
so
what I'm talking about.
You can do your conditioning.
Yeah.
With pucks. Right. There's some very, very hard drills, including battles. Like that'll do it for you. But my experience would tell me this: a lot of coaches will have a night designed to bag skate the kids. It's in the plan. Okay. So does that make sense to me? No. But let's go perspective again. Sometimes they just don't know any better. They think that's how you condition a team.
Yeah.
So if that's the reason they do it, like, because Charlie had a coach like that, and he thought in his mind that if I skate them hard every Monday night, then we're going to be the best conditioned team in the league. Not understanding that every coach says that.
Yeah, I know.
So we all be the same.
Yeah.
But there's other ways of doing it. So I have no problem with hard practices. None. That's really good for you. The bag skate, just a bag skate, like designed on Monday nights, no matter what, whatever. But you need to have days where it's really hard. The punishment bag skate, I don't get that because that's where we're going, right?
Yeah.
So when we use the word punishment, like because you didn't work hard, you had a bad weekend, you had a bad game, you didn't back check hard. I'm going to teach you how to back check. If you don't want to do it in a game, you're going to do it in a practice.
Yeah.
Right? No, that's the way it is.
I know.
It's like, okay, all right, big nose.
Yeah.
Why don't we look at it like, as a coach, why can't we do, okay, we didn't have, our back checking was atrocious. So you can explain that to the guys. We lost this weekend and I'm not happy about it because our effort on the back check in our defensive zone sucked. So we're going to work on this real hard today. And we're going to do drills where it's back checking drills. It's going to be defensive zone drills. And it's going to be freaking hard. It's going to be hard so that you can dial it in. But not hard because you're assholes. Hard because we got to learn how to do this and do it hard so that when we ever get in a situation, we understand what defending is and how important two-way hockey is. We have to understand that. And that's why today we're going to work our asses off at that. Do you guys understand? And there's a tone here, right? Yeah. This is why we're going to have a hard practice today, boys. And it's going to be on the thing that you didn't do well because you just didn't feel like it, or you think that the play only goes one way. So we're going to learn, and we're going to learn hard. And if you puke, whatever. I don't really care because you're going to learn how to play D zone so that everybody gets to win or get whatever. So that's one way to do it.
Yeah. So I guess this is kind of what I'm saying is you guys didn't do well. I'm going to make you guys skate. There's no teaching.
There's no teaching.
And that's kind of what my problem is with it. It's like you doing it in the way you're talking about, where it's like, we're going to have a purposely hard practice a little bit because I'm annoyed with you guys. And I'm still going to make sure you're learning why I'm mad at you guys, or why I'm not happy with your performance, or why we lost this weekend. It's like, if it comes down to a couple things, like I should be punishing, to use the word punishment. I'm going to punish you in a way that is teaching you, particularly at the youth levels. If you're in the NHL and you guys had a stinker weekend, and now it's a whole different set of circumstances, and the coach just says, okay, you guys sucked this weekend, you can go bag for half an hour now.
Yeah, they can do
because
that.
Because they know, like,
it's their job.
It's their job.
Yep.
They already know their systems. They already know how to do everything. Everyone knows how to play hockey. It's not like they need to learn more. It's they need to do a better job executing. So it's like, if you're going to make those guys bag skate, then fine. But if we're talking like junior and youth levels, it's like they need to be taught still. So if you're going to waste an hour of your 2 practices a week, or you're going to waste 2 hours of your 4 practices a week if you're in junior, just bag skating for the sake of bag skating, it just seems like purposeless waste of time. And the kids don't even get it. Like, the kids will say, like, when they're in here, they're just like, yeah, I know we're going to get bagged because we didn't have a great weekend.
Yeah.
But
some of the coaches think it's cool.
And that's the power trip thing, right? So there's that part of it too.
Yeah. So when coaches say, like, so using word punishment, so let's just say it was like, as our example has been, the back checking or the forechecking, the hard work wasn't there.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to punish the kids, so I'm going to go a little bit harder on the coaches now. If you're going to punish the kids, you have to also take some responsibility, because you were on the bench that day. You were on the bench. So what is your repercussion for not having them work hard? Because you could have lit a fire under each of their asses, or you could have said, like, or did you teach for the last 2 weeks what you wanted? Did you spend any time on effort? Like, you can't just already say, well, like, it's all the kids all the time.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not a fan of just a straight up bag skate. There should be some teaching, and there should be a responsibility on each end. So for example, the kids aren't working hard. It's like, I don't know what I got. Maybe I didn't get you guys going. It's okay to do that, but we have to figure this out together. We're both getting, you know what I mean? Very, 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 very important, because the kids you can't just kick the kids down, because that's the easy target, right? And it's okay to lean on them hard, but but as a leader, it's good to say, okay, you could say that you guys didn't perform, but how am I saying this? I want to share some of the responsibility, because obviously I didn't do my job well enough to get you prepared. So we're going to get this going. Right. So now the next perspective would be, have I ever bag skated a team? Yes. Well, am I contradicting myself? No, because sometimes a coach has no other choice, or no, the other choice is just to say, pack your bags and leave. Right. But so when I did, this is a funny story actually. So I had a young team, and we were getting ready for a big playoff run. Like, it was like they accomplished something that they actually didn't have the talent to do. And so I had them the year before, and it was the second year that I had them. I told them at the beginning of the year, you guys won everything last year. So this year, like last year, we went under the radar. We weren't expected to win, as every level, right? Winners, you get up for those games. So I said, this year you're going to have guys that know who you are, and they're going to want to beat you. You're going to get everybody's A game. You're going to get the first goalie, most likely. You're going to get A games. So be ready. So it was kind of like, it was a real, not real challenge, but it was a lot more challenging to get these guys to play that year, to work hard, because they thought they were good now. Very common. It happens in the NHL, it happens in junior. You think guys are good, it's like, oh boy, we got issues here. So we got near the end. It was this big playoff thing, and we're leaving in 2 days, and the practice was just like garbage. Like, they were. So I went to my assistant coach. I said, these guys are off today. I said, they're not working hard at all. He goes, no, I know. He was pissed off. I said, called them in. I said, boys, this is not acceptable. Like I said, if you're not good enough to do something, that's one thing. But when the effort's not there, or you're not giving it, or you're not paying attention, so that's not acceptable. Did that twice, and then I'm like, well, because I lost it. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to pretend that we're going to work through this, because you ain't into it, and I had enough. So I go, since you don't want to actually put the effort in today, and you don't want to actually listen to what I'm saying, because you are obviously doing anything, just get on the red line. I'll blow the whistle. I'll tell you what to do. Right. So that was I was at the end of my rope. There was nothing left to teach except for to say, I'm disappointed. You gave up on me. I'm giving up on you today. Right. There's one out of very, 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 like, it had never happened.
Well,
but there's a reason.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like you tried everything else. Like, you brought them in, you told them we got to pick it up. Brought them in, told them we got to pick it up. They didn't do it. You were trying to do the thing, and they just weren't having it. And then at that point, it's okay. Like, you guys are giving me a middle finger, so that you guys got a middle finger. Here you go. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that situation, but it's the default move to, without trying to be the teacher, because the point you made earlier is important. It's like, if they had a bad weekend, like, it's like, and they just come to practice on Monday and you bag them, it's like, it's a little bit of abdication of responsibility on the part of the coach in that situation. So it's like, if you had a part to play in it also, coach, right? So if they just show up and you bag skate them, it's like you're just saying you guys had a bad weekend, right?
Yeah, it's if like, you're a team, you're a team. Yeah. If you're a team, you're a team. It's not you're a team when we win, and then when things go bad, it's your fault. I'm the smart one. It's not the way it works. Exactly. Figure out together.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. Is like when the default move is like, so this, I guess this is kind of my to give some perspective to the coach, it's like, what are you actually accomplishing by doing the bag skate here? And to me, when I think of most situations where a coach bag skates, it's not the situation you're talking about where it's like you've tried everything and the kids aren't responding. It's usually, from my experience, it's just like, okay, you guys had a bad weekend. You guys are going to be punished now because it's your fault that you didn't play well. And I don't think that's the right mindset or right perspective to have as a coach, because you're the leader.
Yeah. But if you think conditioning, if you actually think, and I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying if you think that conditioning or the bag skate for 15, 20 minutes is helpful for your team and that's what you believe, okay. Like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's just a different
It's
conversation.
just a different,
to me.
different conversation, but it's actual punishment.
Yeah, because that's a different thing. Like, because I can already see like somebody saying that exact thing. It's like, well, we do it for conditioning. Like, you think we shouldn't bag for conditioning? It's like, no. Like, if you're going to do a hard skating drill because your team is out of shape or whatever, that's just a different conversation, right?
If you believe that, that's okay.
It's the specifically about punishing the kids, right? So that's cool. Do you have anything else with that for the coach thing?
That's good.
So the last thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap up is I had another question about balancing multiple sports
with travel
hockey.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, I think there's two ways. There's kind of two ways to look at that. One is the question of, should kids play multiple sports, which we've talked about that before, but maybe worth touching on again. And then the other is, if my kid wants to be a very competitive athlete or a very competitive hockey player specifically, then where do other sports play into that? And this might be where I can touch on the book thing I was talking about before. This is where I wanted you to.
So can I go first before you go?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to state the obvious. It's good to play other sports. That's just good. It's good for a lot of different reasons. The other thing is, depending on your age, I don't understand why you wouldn't, because if you're I think that decision to only play hockey would come from a parent. Like, that would be encouraged by a parent, in my opinion, because kids just want to play anyways. So if you're so focused at 9 years old of being an NHL hockey player and you're actually not playing hockey, you're training for hockey. You know what I mean? Yep. Training hockey, then what are you training for? Because no one knows how good you're going to be. Mm-hmm. So it's not, to me, it's irrelevant if you're good at 7 or 8. That you should be dreaming of NHL stuff, parents. So this is where parents have to come in, because you just don't know. And it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do, most likely. So training for hockey is not a good idea. Playing sports and in general is good. If your son or your daughter or whatever, they will dictate how much they want to play. So by playing other sports, good for all, crossover, thinking of other games. It's good for agility, good for I got some deep stuff thereafter. Yep. So that's the simple stuff. But if your kid leans towards being, I want to train for hockey, you don't have to do one thing, because the kid will take his pucks and he'll shoot pucks at his fence or in the basement or do whatever. He's going to do things on his own that are going to indicate that I really like to do this, and this is where my first importance is hockey. But I love to play other sports. Other sports are good. All right. So examples of other sports that are good. It doesn't matter actually. But like, just to show a different perspective, let's say you wanted to be a hockey player, but I like jiu-jitsu. Well, jiu-jitsu has nothing to do with hockey. Okay, great. But I like it. So what would be good about jiu-jitsu? Well, jiu-jitsu would show you everything about leverage, everything about balance. It'll show you everything about
body
awareness, yeah. Joints, and does that battle, humility, all these things. So yeah, but what does that have to do with hockey? Everything. It's the same, right? Toughness. So like, you get into a jiu-jitsu hold, right? Leverage. Well, I'm going to say, when you're old, if you get into a hockey fight, that's what that is. You leverage balance. If you're in the corners with guys, you learn how your center line works and how your balance and your hips and all that stuff. Or if someone's on you in a corner, you learn how to roll off guys. Like, and you'll get that through jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying go do jiu-jitsu. I'm saying, if that was a sport your kid decided to pick, or your dad, you're a hockey player, but your dad is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, it's a really good thing to play. If you decided it was lacrosse, well, that's really good. So a lot of people say it's a crossover sport. Yeah, sure, whatever. It's a sport. That's all it is. But is it good for hockey? 100%. It'll teach you toughness, agility. It'll teach you the D zone, more like incredibly well to make you a better hockey player if that's your purpose of playing another sport. If you play baseball, catch, bending, whatever. But I think the most important thing outside of making friends, I don't want to talk about that stuff. Like, obviously, I'm not, you know, you make other friends. That's the simple stuff. But these are the things that people. This is something that I don't think people really think about is injuries. If you only play hockey and you're training hockey all the time, nice hips, dude.
Yeah.
Nice hips and shoulders and lower back by the time, feet and ankles by the time, knees by the time you're 18, 20 years old. So like one of the things is it's called overtraining. And anything that you do, if you do it,
repetitive movement injuries, man. Yeah.
Right. And like look like I spend time getting the kinks out now, but that's that fishing pole thing, right? Yeah. Like with when we had Chad from Edmonton Oilers, he was talking about the importance of recovery. And he goes, like, in a hockey season, you're like a fishing pole that's, been fishing, and you're bent. Like, this is how you are. Your hips, your lower back, and you're hunched over because that's what you do. So if you never get out of that position, you're going to be like this for life, and you're going to have overuse injuries. So it's actually really important to straighten out that spine, get the hips aligned and all that kind of stuff, so you can actually walk normal and have some recovery, because it's not going to show when you're 12 or 13 or 19, but when you're 30 and you're walking like that,
you have a lot of imbalances,
right?
Yeah.
So it's important to take that and have the fishing pole effect, and then the other thing is to use your other muscles, strengthen the muscles around the muscles that you haven't used. And so doing something completely opposite of hockey is actually beneficial to you, for injuries. Just overuse injuries from competitive movements. You're just going to have better overall skill if you play other sports. I know that some people just can't understand that, but your skill will actually be better because you learn how to catch. And there's like, if it's baseball, you learn how to catch. Lacrosse, you learn how to catch. Football, whatever it is, a sport, you're going to have crossover skills that are going to just make you a better overall athlete. And the better overall athlete you are will help you in your game. Yeah. Period. Right? And then let's see. I guess the last thing would be emotional burnout. And I've said this before, is you can only get so excited so often about one thing. And that's why we talk about where I'm not a big fan of having a hockey season and then spring hockey. It's just way too much hockey games. Your competitive spirit cannot be the same in September, December, March, and then June. Something's got to give. So that would be a huge one. And I want if I'm playing, I want to be dialed in and ready to go every day when it comes to game time or practice time. And then you take that, right? You take that season, you park it, and then you get better. Mm-hmm. So having said that, you were talking this morning about the book that you're reading, and I think it really goes well with the with
so I think, well, just to kind of cap off everything that you were talking about, the reason that it's beneficial to do those things is, you learn all that other stuff, but then when you're in your sport environment that you care about most, those other things will come automatic. That's what's great about learning like that body awareness type stuff. If you're using the jiu-jitsu example, if you're used to grappling and having guys pinned up against you, and you know how to leverage that and get yourself out of positions, if you're in a board battle with somebody, you will just do it. You don't have to think about how do I get out of the situation. It's just automatic for you now because you have that skill set built in. You've been here before, right? So that's what the benefit is of playing other sports and doing other things, is that your problem solving capabilities become a lot better because there's a lot of crossover scenarios where you can apply something from another situation to the one you're in that you haven't seen before, right? So there's certain situations in hockey that happen more frequently in another sport, right? So whether if we stick on that example where you're grappling with somebody and you're pinned up against the mat, right? That happens a lot more in jiu-jitsu than it happens in hockey, but it happens a lot in hockey. So if you're used to being in that situation and you understand the body awareness of getting yourself out of that situation, obviously it's not in the same way because someone's not trying to choke you, but it's the same kind of movement patterns or body awareness that you need to have to get yourself through that situation. using leverage, pushing off the ground, pushing off the boards, whatever it is. So that's what's the benefit is it comes automatic, right? And so this book that I'm reading, again, it's called Range. I'm about a third of the way through it, so I haven't been through all of it yet, so maybe I shouldn't be completely endorsing it, but it's by David Epstein. I'm going to put a picture of it again. I've mentioned it a few times the last few episodes. And I think I forget the other book again. I think it's called
It's
the Sports Gene.
Sports Gene.
Sports Gene.
Sports Gene.
Okay. So, if you go on his website, it's here. If you're curious, I'll put the link up or I'll put a picture of it or whatever. And so it's called Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. And then the Forbes quote on it is, it's the most important business and parenting book of the year. So it's definitely available on audiobook and whatever.
The easiest read though.
It's not a difficult read, but it's not, there's just a lot. He makes his point and then he hammers his point. So it's like he doesn't just like make the point and move on. He like digs into the point with like a very detailed example for everything so far. So you have to hang in with it a little bit because it's like you're ready for him to move on to his next point, but he keeps going on the same thread, kind of how we get on a ramble sometimes. But it's worth reading because it's a lot of the themes are the same, and it's important because parents get fooled by early progress into thinking that it's going to set their kids up later on. And this whole book is basically explaining how you need to develop a general base of skill first before you specialize into one avenue. So, and you can apply that in any domain. If it's sports, for example, don't play one sport because you will be worse off in the long run having only played one sport. And he goes into the research on that.
So it's like exactly what the long-term athletic development plan talks about.
Exactly. So if I, for example, this is one of the issues with, I'm a big fan of like self-teaching as well. Like I like being self-taught, but the problem with being self-taught, and the reason that schooling is nice, because they give you that foundation of knowledge of everything in school, right? So when you have to take classes that you don't care about, which that's annoying on the one hand, but on the other hand, it's giving you a base of knowledge about a lot of things if you pay attention, right? So similarly, even if I specify a little bit and now go into engineering, when I first started in engineering, I still got a base of education in all fields related to engineering before I specialized into software and hardware, right? So I learned a lot about mechanical engineering, which didn't end up being what I was doing at the end of my degree, but that was valuable knowledge to have. And so basically this whole book is they're walking through examples of someone who specializes in something versus someone who gets something more general and then specializes later. And so they did examples of chess players, athletes, students, all of these different things. And what they found is that if kids are successful early on in their skill development, so like let's say they have an easier time learning because their teacher gives them hints. So it's like they help you skip steps, right? It's like if they just show you the process early, you'll know how to do the process early, right? But the problem with that is you don't get into deep learning states of having to struggle through it where it really starts to set in why you're coming to the conclusion you're coming to. So if I just give you the procedure of how to solve a problem and then now you know the procedure, you don't really have to make the connections of why the procedure works because you already have it. You already have the procedure now, so you don't necessarily care about why the procedure works, you know? So then that is of benefit to you early on because you will see progress in whatever that domain is faster than somebody else. And this is what happens with parents is their kid gets an early jump in skill development, for example, because they got a skills coach when they were 8. And so they became a little bit of a better skater.
Yeah,
they could
they're
shoot.
On the ice more.
Yeah, they're on the ice more.
Yeah.
They could shoot the puck a little bit better. And they got a jump early on. But later on, that stuff that they learned doesn't stick with them as well as the kid who had to grind through and kind of figure it out on his own, or whose teacher just didn't give him the answer. Like he had to figure out how to do it, the body mechanics or whatever. And an example for you is when you talk about when you were learning how to shoot, you would just be shooting pucks on your own and one would go off really great. And you'd be like, wow, why did that happen? And you'd be like, oh, okay, so when I put my stick in this position, it came off really hard. When I do it this way, it didn't work, you know? Whereas if the coach just tells you, no, just do it this way, this works better, then you didn't make the connection of when it doesn't work, right? So now if a puck comes off later and it doesn't come off nice, you didn't actually learn the fact that bringing it in here is better compared to this other thing. you only know the better option, right? So now if you get into a situation where you need to modify your shot a little bit, you don't understand those little intricacies of the skill now, right? So anyways, long-winded, but that is basically, the book walks through a lot of this type of stuff. So it's really valuable for parents because it will give you some peace of mind knowing that if your kid isn't dialed in on all of the most elite skills camps and tournaments and spring hockey and whatever, they're not going to be at a disadvantage long term. And this book goes through the research on it. Like, it's not just this guy says what he thinks. It's like he's talking about actual studies they've done in all of these different learning environments. It's not just sports. It's school. It's everything. Well, right?
I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go.
Noah Morneau.
Yeah, Noah Morneau.
Windsor Spitfires. Drafted 14th round. I don't think he ever went to a summer hockey camp or did any training whatsoever, but he played a lot of baseball and he was very, very good at it.
Right.
He's playing in the OHL.
Yeah. And so
he's good.
And this is everything comes down to your ability to problem solve, right? Being able to perform in a game, you have to be able to problem solve so that you are applying your skills to the game situation, right? And game situations aren't like practice, right? So if in practice you're only learning how to do things in practice, you don't make the connections of how to do it in the game, man. So if it's not exactly the way that, and that's something else that they found in this book, if they take researchers that are really good at one thing, as soon as they deviate outside of that really limited domain, their method of thinking breaks down because they don't know the material anymore, right? So it's almost like memorization versus being able to solve a problem, right? If you have the answers memorized, you can be really smart in that one thing because you know all the answers because you've memorized them. But if you deviate out a little bit, and the game is the deviation part, right? You deviate. The game is deviating from practice. That's what it is.
I would even say, like, this is why, as a skills coach and whatever, I firmly believe you don't need a skills coach all the time. And there's only a time and a place that you need it. And then you also need a skills coach that is actually going to help you understand yourself or find your deficiencies. So that's why I always use that term. How I always tell the kids, I said, you'll know when you don't do something properly because it won't feel right. When it feels right, it feels right. And if it's not feeling right, it's wrong or there's a deficiency there. And I was very aware of that young. So I owe Mr. Rose when he used to coach me. We used to do like basic skill drills. And I remember being maybe 9. And because I took hockey very seriously. So we're doing our skill drills and it was like just coming around the ice and it was turns, right? S, like an S all the way up the ice on cones. When I turn to my right, it feels left. When I turn right, it feels odd. And it bothered me. So what did I do? I was aware that it bothered me and I was like trying to solve a problem. So it was like, is it because my stick's on this side? No. Is it this? No. What I kind of realized is if I put extra, like when I would turn to the left, because my right was my stronger leg, that my inside leg would be proper, my balance was good, and I'd be able to push nice with my right leg. What not so good on my left? I figured that out on my own. So without solving your own problems, the skills coach or someone telling you what to do all the time doesn't know what you're thinking or feeling, and a lot of kids don't communicate that, or they're embarrassed to, or the skills coach doesn't have the time to listen to you. So when I have a kid come up to me and ask questions like that, I take it very seriously. Like when I'm doing this, coach, it feels like this. I'm like, okay, so we try to solve that problem, but I really want them to get to the core of it, and I'll give them a couple of tips on what to do. But it's like very important that they recognize it because now you can actually now you know it's an itch that they want to scratch.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, and that doesn't mean you don't help the kids. That's the balance of being a teacher. It's like you want to help them, but you need them to make the connection. If you just give them the answer or you help them skip the steps of the struggle of understanding why, then they can't use that later, you know? And so this is where, again, back to the book, they were saying like the cross disciplines is super helpful because you have more experiences to draw from to make connections that will solve a novel problem that you're facing in a game, right? So if it's something that you never really do in hockey practice, but you can pull from the experience that you had at football practice, you might be better in that situation now because you have that experience over here, right? If I want to start an e-commerce store, is it necessary that I have a expert level understanding of accounting? No, but it'd be good if I knew something about it, right? So I can balance the profits. I know how to set it up financially, and I know where I'm making a mistake versus not. I at least have some awareness, right? So now it's easier for me to solve the e-commerce problem with a little bit of understanding of accounting, you know? Does that mean I did a full deep dive on accounting? No, but I dabbled. I did a little bit of it, right? And so early on, parents are very, very quick to specialize their kid, you know? Maybe because they see a little bit of potential, maybe because they whatever. But one of the things that he ended off, the chapter I just finished last night, actually, he ended off saying that the coach player interaction will probably outlast any skills that the kid learns off that coach,
especially young.
Especially young. That's 100%. What it's for. I'm talking young, right?
100%.
So if you have a fantastic skills coach when your kid is 8, 9, 10, 11, the way that coach treats your kid will last longer than the skills he teaches your kid, you know? And that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because that gives you freedom now as a parent to not think, if I don't do this, I'm going to be screwed, or I'm going to be stuck, or whatever. And, so the guy, back to the guy's question, he was asking about trying to balance travel hockey and other sports. If we start with the understanding that the kids should be playing other sports, they should be doing other things, they should take music lessons, or not even music lessons, play an instrument, like draw, do other things than just playing sports, or specifically one sport, that is better. When it comes to balancing it, the thing that I like to say is, you have time for what you make time for. Everybody says they're too busy for everything, right? So if you have watched 15 episodes of Netflix in the last 3 days, it's like, how busy are you, right? So show me your schedule. I'll tell you if you're too busy, So if you want to balance the schedule, you have to make time to balance the schedule. That's the thing. If you have to cut out an extra hockey practice because you want to play baseball, you have to. That's what you have to do, right? You're going to have time for what you make time for. So for it to be balanced, you have to balance it. It's not going to balance itself. There's no magic schedule you can have that would just be optimally balanced. There's always trade-offs, right? You're going to have to cut something if you want to balance something else. And the younger they are, the more reasonable that is. I had another dad comment, my kid really, or not my kid, he said, I like having my kids take 2 months off of hockey in the summertime to play other sports and do other things, play baseball and whatever. But I'm feeling the pressure that my kid needs to be in spring hockey, or he's going to fall behind. He's not going to fall behind.
Outside pressure. So that was another example I was going to use with this. Well, no, it was more along the spring hockey. We're talking about that. So with spring hockey, people think that they have to be on the ice, like more is better. I need more hockey games, this and that, or else I fall behind. Okay. Well, what happens if in the middle of the season breaks his ankle, or has a high ankle sprain, or he's out for 3 to 6 weeks? When he comes back, is he a terrible hockey player? No. He needs, he's got to get
the
recovery. Yeah. And then within two, 3 ice times, he's maybe not in the exact same condition, but you can do something about that.
For sure.
And you could come back and play hockey, and you're never any worse. And it is just so important to me that you play other sports, even just from a reference point. Like when we do our shooting camps, right? I use boxing as, listen to this, fellas. In shooting camps for hockey, I use boxing as a reference point all the time. Really? How the hell is that? Well, like, first of all, you have everything in boxing. You don't just, if you think of a punch, you don't throw with your shoulder out. You couldn't dent a wet bag of diarrhea with that. It's got to come from somewhere, right? Hips, right? Your hips turn. It comes from right from your balls of your feet, and there's a torque, and then it's a rotation, and it's a follow through, right? That's the same thing as shooting a puck. It doesn't come. You don't shoot pucks like this. It comes from like weight transfers. It comes from hips. Comes from toes. Comes from shoulders. Hip torque. Follow through. So if you go to punch, so like a lot of times we'll say it with a kid in shooting a puck, it's like, you're not following through. This is how I want you to follow through. Tuck your chin, follow through, all that shit. And they don't do it. I say, okay, watch this. If I punch you in the head right now to here, and I just graze your chin like that, will that do any damage? No. If I go and I put everything into it and go through your head, it's not going to be a difference. I go, yeah, that'll hurt. I go, okay, same with shooting a puck, same thing. So there's all these different reference points that you can use if you use other sports that you can. It's not just, it doesn't have to be about hockey.
Yeah.
You know, you go into boxing, skipping. You know, if you just take boxing for example, you're on the balls of your feet all the time. You're hopping around, you're bouncing, you're using that quickness, your calves, right, your stomach, but you're using those quick feet, and it's so beneficial to that quick twitch.
Yeah.
You know, it's important, man.
Well, and I think I guess my moral of my story here for the guy that left that comment too is like, I like my kids to do other things during the summer. It's like, you're bang on, man. You're bang on. You're not gonna fall behind. You're even if they do fall behind, they won't fall behind.
They're not
right?
behind.
Even if at the start of the next season there's kids that are better than your kid, that isn't behind. It's behind today. It's not behind when it matters, and when it doesn't matter until later, right? So that as long as the development continues, as long as they keep practicing and they keep playing the sport and whatever, it evens out, man. And people they have a really hard time when they're in the moment seeing that. And just as the wrap up for me, if you need or want something else to convince you that isn't just me telling you, this is a great resource for that so far in what I've read. I've read a third of it, and it's a great resource in talking about these exact things. If you don't like to read, you can get it on audiobook, you can get it whatever, where you don't have to actually read the words, but it's worth hearing it from someone who's looked through research on it too, right? So your subjective opinion about, well, I can see my kid getting better. You're going to, they're practicing, right? You're going to see the progress, but that doesn't mean it's long-term going to last, right? And the thing they call it in the book, it's a fade out effect. It starts to fade as time goes on. The initial benefit that you've seen is going to fade away. And we see that all the time, man. I remember kids I used to play with, the kids that were the best when I was 10, 11, 12, the 3 kids that were the best when I was 10, 11, 12 didn't even play hockey when I was 16. So it's like, it all just is fluid. It changes really fast. So as long as your kid keeps practicing to whatever degree they want to practice, more isn't always better. Forcing them to do things and to train when they're 8, 9, 10 isn't going to last. The interactions they have with their coaches end up being more impactful than the skills, right? Or their ability to put it in a game, right?
I haven't read that book. That makes total sense.
Yeah. I'll give it to you when I'm done.
Yeah.
So you can
I'll
read it.
buy it. That's fine. I like reading.
It's really good, and it helps just reinforce kind of the perspective thing we're talking about, right? And I think just to on the wrap up of it is exactly that. As the coach, the parents, it's like you have to be able to keep the perspective. You have to just zoom out and think about what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, because most of the time the craziness doesn't make a difference, doesn't matter, won't matter next year, won't matter next week, won't matter in 2 years, it won't matter. So all this extra emotion, all the swings of the highs and lows, the anger, the frustration, all of that, or the overwhelming joy you feel that your kid won the tournament and he was the MVP, we don't know what that means yet, man. So just, you have to keep it in perspective, you know? Yeah. So 100%. That's what I got. Anything else to finish on there?
No, it's good. I think we've taken up a lot of your time there.
Yeah, we beat that to death for sure. So, okay, leave it there. See you guys.